IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
Hi and welcome to Know Your Kanoon. This is another episode coming out from our end today, I would say, as we have someone very interesting again on the show. He's a show host, sports anchor, and I don't know what not, and I'll let him introduce himself. He's a dear friend who I met a couple of months ago, and then here he is today, and it's a privilege to have him on the show. So this is Mr. Karan Ambardar, and Karan, thank you so much for being here with us today and sparing your time out of the busy life that you have. And I would now like you to introduce yourself because me, Rishi and Sumit, we don't really know how to introduce our guests properly. So it'll be better if you could introduce yourself and do justice to your honors and titles.
I'll keep it very simple. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for calling me here on this platform. I am an Aam Nagrik. I am a regular man, a common man who's here to learn about the law. Very simple introduction.
So guys, for your info, cricket fans out there, please know that Karan's hosted ICC. For Kabaddi fans, please know Karan's done that also. Karan's done football also. So Karan's done just probably about every sport that's possible in India. And he's been a model. And add on, please. Yes, and he was a model as well. Yes.
What does a show off? The only one to host the football World Cup.
The only one to host
only
the
Indian,
football World. Yes, only
Indian.
Indian. And which is utmost important because Hindustan mein football, matlab bura hi haal hai. Matlab I shouldn't say such things, but he's been lucky enough to be here and do this. So thank you so much, Karan, for being here. And let's just start our conversation around law today, where we can just talk about your experiences as a citizen, right? The idea of the show when we started was to make it really heavy with a lot of legal jargon, which I did use. And what happened towards the end of it was people were like, what the hell, like what is happening? We are really, really confused with the kind of jargon. So we want to really simplify it down and let's do it with you today because you've had a fair share of trouble with some situations in your life. And I would like to know from you, that, when Indian citizens, and let's start with it, that Indian citizens always complain, this is my right. This is how things should be. But penultimately, we don't realize, because of course legal education is not part of our curriculum as a country. We don't realize what our rights are, and then they get trampled upon. And when we start questioning, the other party feels you're asking something out of the blue, and it culminates into nothing but frivolous litigation, which is of no use. Right. So your experiences, your industry involves a lot of public, interactions, and with that comes a bit of a I would say a bit of a situation when you might get into trouble with someone or the other, not owing to any professional situation, but due to some technicals, right? Because you've been in this industry for a very, very long time now. Could you elaborate? How has your journey been as a citizen, and especially being in this field because you're multi-talented, right? And I'm sure you would have had your brush of law. We've all had. But your experiences, people will be able to even correlate that, hey, even Karan Ambardar can have experiences which you've had,
Aam Nagrik, everybody will suffer.
Yes.
if you don't know the law, then you will suffer. Having said that, my industry, I feel, is rather streamlined, I would say. The laws are in place. There is an organization that protects the artists around here.
Wonderful.
Which is a good thing. Sadly, that's not the case with every other industry that we have in our country.
Right.
And one of the most recent cases that happened with me was, sabka sapna hota hai ki Bombay mein ghar kharido.
Right.
Thankfully, we've reached a stage in life that me and my wife were able to buy a house in Mumbai.
Right.
And like many other people, we booked a house, did due diligence. Despite the fact that we are well read,
of course,
we were still taken for a ride. It's a common thing that builders run away with the money.
Of course.
Despite the fact that it was a reputed builder, possession was not given on time, which happens with everybody. Possession is never given on time. And eventually I had to cancel the flat. I had to cancel the apartment, cancel the booking as per my contract.
Right.
Now, despite the fact that it was clearly stated in the contract, terms and conditions were clearly mentioned that possession not given on time in the date, you can ask for your money back, and XYZ interest will be provided to you on your money, blah, 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 whatever. And it's unbelievable that people refuse to cancel my booking. They took us like normally they take everybody as somebody who is, somebody weak. They are the mighty ones. They are well connected with the law, with the lawmakers, XYZ. You know how the system runs. And I was actually told, which is very surprising, that we need your patience, your time, and your money to complete our project.
Which is sadly the case.
Yes, and it's appalling. So we had to fight. I thankfully, and I recommend through your platform, read a lot. You should, whatever subject you are working on, you should read about it. And I read a lot. Read a lot of forums where it was discussed how to take, these property actions, take them out.
Yep.
Despite all of that, despite a couple of legal papers being sent around and a lot of fighting, I had to still fight. I am still fighting the battle. Though I managed to get my money back from the builder, but my loan is not closed.
Of course.
The bank is still troubling me. I don't have a single penny of the money. Everything was given to the builder, but the bank is hounding me. So this is something that I'm sure everybody is facing out there.
And I'll point out these things. The housing sector in India is unorganized. So when somebody signs a contract, we always feel that, and you've rightly put out, I would say 2 out of every 10 Indians would have gone through this minimum, I would say, in their lives. And around me, you're not the only one in the friend circle. I've had so many who have gone through this. And I can name them by fingers, by counting myself on the fingers, that these are the amount of people I've seen who've gone through this. It's so dicey, yet the government fails to take action in these situations.
And this is despite the fact that they have a RERA organization now.
RERA. I'll start with taxation first on this, and then I'll come to RERA to you to tell you how funny it is. The taxpayers' money is collected, right? You're the taxpayer for me. Your money is collected. We believe that it's going to be put to some use. And then we divide it between direct and indirect taxes. And as far as the builders go, I should not say this on this platform, but majority of them have defaulted in the indirect taxes, which includes GST and the erstwhile service tax, which you have paid for.
If I may.
Yeah.
There was a tax component I forgot to mention.
Yes.
There was a huge tax component I forgot to mention. And I asked them, what do I need to do with that? So they say we'll appoint somebody who will help you take it back from the government. And this is pre-GST.
Pre-GST time. Yes, service tax.
Tax. So I said, okay, fair enough. They could not appoint somebody. I again read up things, how to get this thing, how to get the service tax out. Every builder, as you said, has defaulted. I used that to my advantage. And I told the guy, I did my reading up and all, and I told the builder, I said, look, I'm okay getting it on my own from the government. But when the government will come back and open last 7 years of your book and start auditing you take care of that. We will not believe it. Even the tax component, which I paid to the builder who had to pay to the government, he paid it from his pocket and said that I'm going to recover it. So he never paid it.
Exactly. This was the point I was making. So imagine there's somebody who comes, and this is when we are well-read people. Imagine somebody who's just come from a normal family, collected his money, reached there. And during my early years, I used to see this a lot, that, these builders have defaulted for years and years, but they've recovered the same from you and not paid to the government at all.
Correct.
And pocketed it. And, when we start with this and we come to the fact where you got stuck, so many unorganized laws, when you look at that whole agreement, buyer, purchaser, seller agreement that you have, and possession and all of that, nothing goes by timeline. And the accountability, the basic problem that comes here is they just write simple lines on your agreement, which are so obscure. They will say, in case of any dispute, we will go to this. That's it. A single line that describes what you need to do. And I tell all my listeners, and you're a well-read person, you're well-informed, you've traveled, you've known. I tell listeners, read up on technical documentation. Correct. The RERA law being in place, that everything has to be compensated, but backlog in RERA due to all of these malpractices piling up has kept the builder out of the purview. Why? Because the builder does not hold anything in his personal name. He puts everything into the company name and he says, I'm bankrupt. You can go scrutinize my company. There's nothing. I'm ready to go behind bars. And what do? Each state has regional laws. Like Maharashtra is very complex with building laws, property laws. I'm sure centrally there is one single legislation for this. but how do you go about it? Because you must have done your due diligence. You came out, and I was starting with tax because I knew we discussed this over an event one day that, how you went through the process. But most of the people don't know that these are some of the things. Now, the consumer part of things, people say, sir, मैंने एक civil complaint डाल दिया और consumer नहीं डाला. Because मुझे consumer में नहीं पता था क्या करना है. And I tell people that consumer court is also a forum where between service received and service provided, you can create a correlation and file something. The ultimate thing is only about stretching and fighting it out, which you are doing. And that also gives you the belief that at least there is some part of it where you're challenging these people and they're giving the money back to you. I have known of people where they've paid 2 crores, 3 crores, and it's all gone kaput. They're NRIs. They came here, the builders fled away. The floors are lying vacant in Gurgaon. And the only reason for this was their agreements were not well elaborated. So whenever you're buying a property, if you've given a standard format agreement, kindly elaborate the legal clause. Please look at the terms and conditions, the percentage of payments. Even in GST, there are different methods as to how he can recover GST from you, what percentage, at what point of time, and how much do you need to pay. Sometimes they recover 100%. People don't even know they don't need to pay 100% GST outrightly. The GST needs to be paid, in pieces. So again, I'm sure with your experience, people can learn a lot. So thank you so much for elaborating on this front. But now I want to know from you, how did you start educating yourself on the legal side of things as far as this project was concerned? Didn't you approach the right amount of lawyers or forums to know this? Or how did it happen that you started reading just about on your own? How did this happen?
So sabka God ek hi hai, that is Google.
Of course.
Put in a few questions out there and everything pops up. So I started doing this research from via Google, of course. Read up forums where people were discussing who've gone through the same issues, and the lawyers are providing their advice and blah, 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 this and that. Took up some old cases also that were being fought in RERA. And that's, just jotted down all my points, made a note of whatever things I need to, the legal terminology that you need to use in front of the builder to make him realize that you are well aware of things and you can't be taken for a ride. So there was I think I did my research for at least 6-7 days. There were a lot of forums I went to.
Absolutely.
I read multiple pages of, the real estate laws in our country. And only then
Could you talk about some? I'll stop you there. I like to listen to some of them from your side. And maybe if you can tell some of the people that some of the laws that you know of in real estate, because it's way complex, right? And it'll be interesting if you can tell. I don't want you to talk about the statute per se, but at least if you could name some of the few which people can actually forward to.
I won't remember the laws as such.
Of course. Yes. That's what I'm saying. Maybe some part of it.
My advice to people would be, number one, as you mentioned, the words, read between the lines.
Yes.
Always get your contract vetted by a lawyer, people like you, if they're on the right side.
Depends on how much you pay me. That's how it works now. Devil's advocate.
So just make sure that is done properly. The due diligence before you put your signatures on the dotted line will save you a lot of trouble. You will not have to know about all these things. And always, I feel, after I got involved in this, though I'm not fighting a legal battle, it's
of course.
Back channel talks happening with them. Yeah. Also because I'm from the media industry, so they know that I have a slight advantage. If I write it down somewhere, it's going to come out in the open. And that, of course, the builder is already involved in another scam with a very reputed bank. So that's the slight advantage I have. But do your due diligence. Read, which will save you all this trouble that we have gone through, is what I would recommend to everyone out there who's listening to us. And एक lawyer दोस्त होना बहुत जरूरी है.
No, I always tell people, and Karan's been very intelligent to read about this stuff, and very fortunate enough that the builder started having this discussion with him, whatever be the channel. We prefer out of court settlements the most because it really helps save you all the time, effort, and cost. But in case you're not able to do so, what do you do? So I always tell people, start with the district court level. Do not hold yourself back. The lobby against the builders in terms of default and the amount of people that have suffered is huge. The sentiment is in your favor. Follow the due course. It's going to take time. Nothing comes at a quick pace, especially in India. So please file a case in your district court. I can also tell you it's a civil suit that you need to go for non-performance of contract. and you can start filing that, because it's a contractual agreement where something was agreed and to be delivered, where it's overshot. So it's frustration of the contract, it's non-performance. Kindly file for that, depending on the circumstances that you're in. In case the money has been defrauded out of you, then you can approach the route of IPC section 420, where you can just sue him on fraud, I would say. A fraud is there. Then or there are sections where you can use the term influencing in order to commit some kind of fraud with you, influencing your thoughts, your opinions, etc., to draw that money out of you. So there are different kinds of areas. Study your matter. Sit with a lawyer, as Karan is saying. These are some of the options that you have available. Apart from that, consumer forums, please approach consumer courts. There are also divisional courts as far as the real estate matters are concerned in Maharashtra that I know of. Also Delhi and other regions as well. Rent dispute courts, I'm sure everybody knows of. So these are the benches which are there. Yes, the benches that are there, the civil bench will have an attachment of your real estate as well, where it will be handled. So all of this, I know it's quite complex to go through, but it's something that as I'm talking, read out, reach out, study the matter, and of course the contracts. I would say the rent dispute matter is so huge in Bombay. I'll come next to this.
That, I'm glad you mentioned those three terms: rent dispute matter. Very important ones there.
Yes, I'll tell you why these are important. At least Mumbai, I've seen, in this out of experience, I can talk that some of the societies have very weird rules that you can own a place, but the parking is allotted to you on the whims and fancies of the building society as such. Yes, the lobby.
Yes. The ad hoc body gets it.
कि वो डिसाइड करेगा कि आपको पार्किंग कौन सी अलॉट होनी है, आप गाड़ी कब यहाँ खड़ी कर सकते हो, आप कब गाड़ी यहाँ खड़ी नहीं कर सकते हो. That is the
कितने बजे तक खाना डिलीवर करवा सकते हो.
हाँ, precisely. After 10 p.m. nobody will come in. Now I can segregate into three things. Number one, your constitutional rights. Number two, your building rules, which are bylaws. These are bylaws created for smooth functioning of the society, but the bylaws cannot have constitutional connotation attached to them as far as your human rights or personal rights are concerned. When I buy a piece and parcel of land in a property, so this is how it works. If you buy a 2,300 square feet of flat, and this is a standard term I use, or maybe 100 square feet of a flat or an area, the tower which is there, in how many square yards, etc., I don't know, your society might be in, you are entitled to that piece of land equivalent to the floor covered in your apartment. And in any case, anything happens, you are a rightful holder of, even if it's 0.01%, you're a holder of that particular piece of parcel of land. So when you buy that and you pay for that consideration, there are certain things that come with it, and the Supreme Court has approved of it, which is a right to park, right to enjoy safety, full amenities, including safety from being hurt, grievous injury being caused, or any material possession that you have being destroyed or being subjugated to any kind of harm, which includes your vehicles, your stuff lying down in your parking, etc. I have seen this a lot in India, that when a car is parked and construction is going on, if by chance something falls on it, the society says, sir, not our problem.
Not our problem.
Building was the issue, run away. And people rightly say, I can understand, must have happened. It is their responsibility to provide you with a safe parking in case something is going on and the work has been undertaken. Please approach consumer courts, rent dispute courts. Coming to the food delivery issue. I'll let you come in. Yeah, go ahead.
There's another, there's a lot of people in Mumbai are fleeced of their money, especially in these high-rise five-star societies. Every society has a clubhouse. All the amenities.
Yes, and you pay the.
Yes, it's amazing that all tenants are asked to pay a certain amount of membership fee to the club over and above the membership fee that the owner already paid.
Which is very rare, but it happens in Bombay.
It happens everywhere. It's not rare. It's got everywhere. I think that my society does not have that rule. They floated that and they took it back. But every top society, as a tenant, you have to pay for membership.
And again, adding to that, there is a rule that I know of in Bombay. Sometimes people charge you for parking as well as a tenant.
Yes, they do. They sublet their parking.
Which is illegal. Yeah. And nobody questions it. The idea is if you don't question it, people say, I'm paying 1,400 for this piece of parking. All right, I understand. Read the agreement. As a tenant, you have full rights of residency of enjoying that piece of property as much as the owner does, minus the entitlement to ownership. That's all. Uske alawa sab kuch is equivalent to what he would have that you have in the society, and he cannot be told, no, you cannot enjoy this piece, you cannot enjoy that piece. Like as far as 10 p.m. rule is concerned for food delivery, if the food delivery is causing nuisance or disturbance to hundreds of neighbors, then it is a I would say a illegal activity. If the distribution of food is not causing anybody any problem, you have full right to use delivery of food to whatever extent you would want to. The bylaws of society do not take precedence over the constitutional laws. They are just a piece of paper inaugurated to ensure smooth functioning, which also includes collecting of your Aadhaar and personal data information, which they cannot ask from you until and unless it is required for some kind of police verification or it is required for some kind of government work activity, but not for their personal records. They also cannot harass you on that, which happens a lot around in most of the places. So when I talk about these tenancy rights, I tell people all the while, please exercise your consumerism wala rights. Don't let them float around and don't let people flout them by just saying, no, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. In fact, I've had a friend, again from the industry, who's had a problem parking his car in the society.
Oh, damn.
Where they tell him, you're an owner, but since 12 years you've been parking at one place. But on the 13th year, they told him that since you moved out and you went to another place, now you don't have parking rights in this society anymore.
And he's the owner of the flat.
He's the owner of the flat. Now, which is...
What do these guys use? Do they even listen to themselves before stating?
No. And they've written letters asserting that he stayed there for 12 years. And on basis of that, we applied for a legal remedy and we got that because 12 years of uninterrupted service is being used entitles me to an automatic right. And they were asserted that a piece of paper saying, yes, for 12 years, you were parking your car here. That means you're accepting it was my right to park the car in that particular place. And 13th year, you decided without giving me a moment of notice or a chance to remove it. Another point as we speak, somebody wanting to extinguish your right, let's say as parking, cannot do so without giving you the right to be heard. The decisions cannot be arbitrary that somebody in the management decided overnight and next morning you had no chance to reply to the notice and your parking is sacked. So stuff like this, and maybe you can also elaborate now some of your experiences. All this is illegal crap. You should definitely approach the court. You'll get remedies in terms of monetary compensation as well.
There is another thing. We are all charged moving in and moving out charges.
Which is extremely, again, fascinating.
And the amount ranges between 10 to 20,000 rupees.
Which is shocking, right?
Can you believe it? So, and people actually have to pay 10,000 bucks to make sure that their moving in truck comes in and is allowed to enter the gate. There have been instances where people I know of somebody, a pregnant lady was asked to wait on the gate before, till the time she paid up those 10,000 rupees.
Which is shocking, right? Again, because it's shocking and it's illegal.
It's illegal. It's illegal.
You cannot do this. You cannot do this.
Yeah, man. You can't have moving in, moving out charges.
You cannot do this unless the mandate in any of your terms and agreement was of a reason that, society is doing it for a purpose. You cannot create laws. There was a law during the COVID time. I was discussing it with dear friend Cyrus Brocha on his show. Cyrus Says. I had him on Know Your Kanoon. So when we were talking, he was telling me there was a new law where in Bombay, these building vigilantes were roaming around trying to stop people. You cannot move in, move out of the society without a mask. So I told him, I said, well, fair enough, understood. You're supposed to wear a mask in society and everything is over. But the most shocking part was when the relatives of that particular individual who was owner was actually, they were allowed to move in, move out at every whim and fancies. And what do you do? What do you do with people who are, essential service providers? You ask a Zomato guy to park 500 meters, I understand. He walks in and you start telling him, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. No, you're not allowed to. And everyone else in the society is roaming around without a mask. Stuff like this. You cannot create laws that are arbitrary in nature, that mess with tenants, or that destroy someone else's peace.
That makes absolutely no sense, I would say. Laws that make no sense. During Corona, now that you mentioned, societies took matters in their own hand, in the name of protecting everyone. We are the 10 people who will look after you. Don't be scared. We will take care of you. And the fear was such, the fear psychosis that developed in everyone. People started making random rules. And one of them being that there's a society. Everybody was allowed in the society. All the drivers, all delivery boys, everybody, you name it, any essential service, non-essential service, everybody is allowed to step out. There is no embargo from the government of India also. But gym trainers are not allowed.
Yes, that's because their breed is wrong.
Personal trainers are not allowed. Even a masseuse is allowed. Masseuse used to come to the society on the society group. One person would say, oh, XYZ is done. Masseuse is available. And that masseuse would travel in 15, 20 apartments.
Not spreading the virus at all.
Yes. And but a gym trainer is not allowed. Yeah, you can't get a gym trainer, man. That's the new occupation that will cause corona.
No, and on that note, I'm going to come back to this. We're taking a short break, and we're going to be back with Karan and discussing this, because this is an interesting point in how professions are generalized into deciding whether they are allowed or not allowed to come and go out during the corona time. So, again, guys, we're just heading for a short break and getting back again to discuss the same with Karan.
Hey, everybody, let me tell you a little bit about what happened on the IVM Podcast Network this week. We've had some amazing stuff, right? I mean, I don't know if you're aware of the redoing or the rebranding of the Traveling Professors show. We called it now Smarter with Sid, with Siddharth Deshmukh. This week, he examines Netflix getting into e-commerce, and will this affect how Amazon's dominating the space? Also, let me give you another quick hits to join up on. So on Cyrus Says, Cyrus was joined by Olympic equestrian Imtiaz Anis, and Nishan Budla from the Triangle Offense podcast showed up on Thursday's Cock and Bull to talk about the NBA Finals. On Nankari, Sadaf and Archie were joined by Keshav Chaturvedi of the Tere Mere Raste podcast. On Storytellers and Storytellers, Vineet talks to Ashim Mathur from Dolby. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram to keep up with what's going on the network. And with that, let me also just finally thank our sponsors. They're what makes things possible. We'd like to thank Seat, Cred, Global Victoria, Bank of Baroda, Intuit India, and Lenovo. Thank you so much for making this possible.
All right, in conversation with Karan Ambardar, we are back again, and Karan rightly said where we left. You spoke about certain professions being outclassed, not allowed to enter the premises. It is absurd, right? Just because he's a gym trainer, you feel he's going to spread something, but the masseuse can be trusted because she only goes, or he only goes, or they only go to the people that you can correlate with, and it's an absolute necessity to have them, including maids. And whereas gym trainers, because the word gym trainer doesn't sound well, causes you to be, and this is illegal, by the way. You cannot do so.
I know.
The society cannot do so. These are some of the things that cannot be done on prurient levels that are being done. We'll come, Karan, next interesting topic, citizen affecting behavior today. Next topic. Tell me one instance, and I've heard you've had an instance where, maybe you're flying on the road, all right, and you get stopped by a cop. All right, and people go helter-skelter, howling, shouting, "Arey, police wale ne rok liya mujhe, how dare you pull your hand into me?" And, he tried to poke his head in my car and smell whether I was drinking or not. What would you have to say about that? The legality of this? Because I really want to talk about this. This happens a lot.
This is something that it should be put up in a car. It should be a part of the driving course manual. That if this happens, this is what you're supposed to do. This is something that everybody should know, because every 10 minutes, somebody is stopped.
Exactly.
And then, like an ostrich, with due regards to the cops, they're doing their job.
Of course.
You can't move in like an ostrich.
And just come to your face. And exactly.
Dicky kholo. मैं क्यों डिक्की खोलूं? मैं किस लिए डिक्की खोलूं?
Exactly.
आपको कोई टिप ऑफ है? कोई वारंट है? कोई चेक करने का सर्च वारंट है? डिक्की खोलूं मैं? अच्छा, आप एक काम करो, गाड़ी के पेपर और लाइसेंस लेके साहब से बात कर लो. And now suddenly you think, oh my God, साहब तक बात पहुंच गई है, सर कितना चाहिए आपको, आप बता दो.
Exactly.
It's a cycle.
I want you to talk on this and at least narrate an experience where you've come out of it. Maybe if you've had it or not had it, I don't know. But what could you just, as a citizen, elaborate about it?
No, yeah, I've had it. I've had this experience, of course. Randomly, I was stopped one day, coming back. Okay, I'm very particular. Everybody out there, do not drink and drive ever. So we are very particular about that. And I was coming back. I had my wife, a couple of friends with me, and randomly we were stopped somewhere in Bandra. And I was asked to lower my windows, and I abide by the law.
Of course.
No problem. Hi, good evening, sir. कौन है गाड़ी में? कहाँ से आ रहे हो? मैंने पूछा, क्यों सर? Why do you want to know कहाँ से आ रहा हूँ? पार्टी करके आ रहे हो? नहीं सर, डिनर करके आ रहे हैं. मतलब I'm like filling up a slam book. It's
of course, yeah. You have to answer everything.
Yeah, it's like a slam book. Like, next thing I was expecting he would ask me, what did you have for dinner? What restaurant did you go to? Show me your bill. Then he says, open your dicky. I says, why do you want me to open the dicky? He says, checking चल रही है. तो किस चीज की checking चल रही है? नहीं आप डिक्की खोलिए. I said, मैं डिक्की नहीं खोलने वाला. ये गाड़ी साइड में लगी है, आपको जिसको बुलाना बुला लो, ये डिक्की नहीं खुलेगी. अच्छा आप यहीं खड़े रहो, बड़े साहब आने वाले हैं, वही बात करेंगे. आप जैसे लोगों को तो बड़े साहब भी ठीक कर लेंगे. I said, आप बड़े साहब को बुला लो, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, ये डिक्की नहीं खुलेगी.
Correct.
And I stood my ground कि वो डिक्की नहीं खुलेगी. Though I only had my cricket kit in the dicky, nothing to worry about. But he said, you have to open it. I said, I will not open it. And I walked away. The senior officer came. I said, you show me a warrant if there is any one legality required to check. This is my personal car. You can't just open it randomly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I stood my ground and I said, not happening. And eventually he had to let me go off.
No, and Karan, rightly, I'll tell you in most of the situations, like I'll compare jurisdictions maybe on this, but at least as far as police powers go, checking, stopping, abrupt stops, etc. are part of their routine. So that's a job I understand. In case even if they want to get your boot open, he has to give you a reasonable threat or an answer. Maybe if he could have told you that, we are doing it because we are checking, bootlegging is happening, or if we know that there is a possibility that you're hiding something, they have to give you a reason. They cannot just command you and tell you that open your boot and I want to see what is there in that. That kind of a policing is not allowed. And if something like this is coerced upon you, and it happens all the time where people just give in thinking, and the nakas you have, the traffic stops you have, the nakas you have, they are okay to have that. They are okay to screen you, but poking head inside, trying to sniff you whether you have had alcohol or not, or trying to be a bloodhound is not allowed. You can't sniff alcohol off a breath like that. You have to have, but because even the cops are not trained to be sensitive, they're not trained to have handled the policing and the citizen relationship, and they're overstressed and overstretched because of the amount of hours they have to put in. They also take it in a way where they feel, sticking in my head, maybe if I get a whiff, it's okay, otherwise let the guy go. And abrupt checks, again I tell the people, abrupt checks, they can do that, but demanding to open and get your particulars out, they have to tell you a reason. Let's say if he tells you that, I have a reason to believe that you've been drinking. Well, fair enough, I understand. But if he tells you just open your boot,
that's exactly. I asked
no rhyme and reason.
And
if he can tell you, well, we are suspecting, we are checking every third car for random stops because we believe there might be some illegal activity happening, it's fair for him to do so. Absolutely. I'll compare it to another Commonwealth jurisdiction. Canada and Britain, for that matter of fact, have the cops have the legal right to stop you and search your car. They're called stop and search procedures that they conduct there on frequent basis, and they put it anywhere on the highway. But that does not mean that and it's only in exceptional circumstances can he apprehend you into the car, pull out your keys, open up your boot and check what's happening, or even force you to do any of those things. People don't even roll down windows abroad.
Yes, absolutely.
Till the time it's not required and they can tell you what it is. Of course, people comply, but the routine check part of it, I'll tell you about a very interesting case law where they rolled down the window of an individual. The individual got out and complied. This is again overseas jurisdiction. I'll compare it to the Indian jurisdiction. And point some milligram of tobacco of weed was found on him. Okay, and they booked him for this happened again. Yeah, they booked him for, whatever,
possession.
I would say smuggling, possession, whatever it was. And drug trafficking was the charge, etc. they put on him. And the courts very rightly ruled that you cannot do so because the cause, effect, correlation, and the event that happened does not showcase that the individual was trying to traffic it. He was trying to maybe carry that small amount for some other purpose. And that is something that is allowed. And you cannot put that person behind bars. Coming right from it to India, there was an experience that happened in Madhya Pradesh, and the High Court ruled very favorable, highly on the cops in this. They went against them, saying that you cannot do so. It was that an individual was carrying about 8 jerrycans of petrol in the boot, and petrol loosely cannot be carried from pumps. You have to conceal it, and these were tin jerrycans that was sealed, and it was being carried to a farm where a certain amount of activity was happening of tilling, and they'd run out of fuel, and they had to do it. And when that happened and the matter got presented before the Honorable High Court, the court also, and the cops stopped them and told them that you're trafficking petrol illegally in night because these guys refused to agree with the cops, and these were villagers again. They said, well, this is for our personal consumption. You can smell the fuel. We are not stealing it. Please see the papers. They made them speak with everybody, but just because the
paperwork was there.
Yeah, the paperwork in the sense the buying receipt was there, and also, in villages, you understand, like rural areas, they made them speak to everybody that was needed to be, and they even proved the fact that we are residents of that village, and this is the incident that's happened, and we need it right away. The cops, out of the whatever reason it was, they tried to book them into trafficking of fuel. And the courts and the poor guys, they were not aware of this, and illegal trading and hoarding, etc. All those charges were put in. But the courts rule very heavily, saying that there has to be a viable reason for you to tax somebody like this. And in a region which is not well accessed, not enough supply is there, or a situation like this, there you cannot stop them over such a petty thing and put them behind bars for trafficking. Even in cities like Bombay, etc., people need to realize that when you are stopped on a traffic stop, please ask for the right question instead of getting into an argument. I've seen people getting into fights.
Yes.
It's very stupid. You're stopping somebody. He's a public servant. He's doing his job. You have the right to ask him. Where you feel you're being violated, please ask him very politely. They will also consider you equally sane enough, like what Karan might have done, that the guy knows what he's doing. If you try to fight, you give them a reason to put you behind bars, all the more. And the very sensible way of doing it is ask the right questions, right? Document that in whatever way you can, and you have witnesses all the while. They will not mess with you. They will, no matter how senior the officer is, they can never go against the law publicly unless you give them a chance to do so.
Yes. Right? I have a slight advantage.
Yes,
anchoring is asking questions, so I do ask the right questions.
Yes, and that's the way to go about it. I always tell people the discord between the police and the public is you don't ask the right questions the right way. People get offended with their rights. It's a traffic cop or a cop otherwise, any case is there to publicly assist you with this. The more you fight over such issues, it tends to bring that discord. And also, I don't believe you should get offended if you're stopped. I mean, it's your job to answer these questions right away. And if you find that it's being unreasonable, you have the right to even question that whatever you're asking me is not allowed as per law. I'll come to a very interesting point. When an FIR is being filed, right? I don't know if you've ever been a party to a friend or anybody who's got an FIR done for something. When an FIR is being filed, most of the people in India do not ask for an FIR memo. An FIR memo is where all details are entered when an FIR is filed. The memo talks at length about what and every small particular, even the color of your hair. And I'm not exaggerating. It starts with that. This is the description of the individual, brought this paper with him. It was saying the following things: entered at 9:45 p.m. Entered this police station. These were the two individuals along with it. It is so brief. Just because people get arrested and they are scared, they never ask for an arrest memo to be issued. Whereas it is your right under CRPC to ask for an arrest memo. It is his duty to provide you with the arrest memo before you're put in. I know it can be delayed. They can put you instantly saying you're a threat. But if a legal proceeding starts, I'm sure your lawyer would definitely ask for you. But if you are well read, you can ask for an arrest memo or a FIR memo to that effect, which provides all the details of your FIR that have been taken into consideration. You just don't have to sign on a piece of blank paper in case you get in trouble of law. So these are some of the things I tell people, that as a citizen, you must be aware, because people complain. I was stopped and an FIR was filed for me, and people get stuck in drug peddling, etc., when they are actually not peddlers. They're framed for it. So stuff like this. So Karan, last piece of our segment before we close in. It's pretty late. I'm sure you have to catch one dinner as well.
No.
Sumit also needs to go and drink. It's his job, basically. He's tired all day. So as part of that, what I want to know from you is any last civic point, from a civic perspective point of view. Let's look at some civic laws. Anything you would want our listeners to know, they can learn from your experiences, because you're influential enough to tell people some experiences you've had and you've read about them. Anything you would want people to know.
I'm glad you asked me that. Consumer laws, it's a very, very big topic.
Yes.
Involving a lot of segments.
Absolutely.
In it. But Jago Grahak Jago.
Jago Grahak Jago.
Yes, that system needs to be put into place the right way. Personally, airlines.
Yes. You had a better experience with the airlines where they misbehave with you or something of the sort. We were discussing,
Yeah, a couple of times it has happened. It's again because consumer laws are not strong enough. I mean, I could have been put up on a no-fly list And I could not fly forever because somebody decided, who got pissed with me because I asked questions. Professional hazard, can't help it. That to the right ones that put you in an awkward place. And he decided that he flagged us off, my wife and me, as a threat to the plane, to the passengers. And this was shared with the pilot. Pilot relayed it down to the ATC, and before we know, we have landed and we have security to pick us up. And I'm sure this is, and then I shared it on social media. You will not believe it, the kind of response I got. Multiple people, there were Supreme Court judges, lawyers who wanted to fight my case pro bono. I had a list of 2,300 people who said, let's club together and fight a case. These are things that consumers get scared of. And if you could please help them in terms of when their money is taken away, booking website says this is convenience fee, we will not give it back to you, or this is XYZ, you can't cancel the ticket, or somewhere it is mentioned in the most smallest of terms, right bottom corner somewhere, that this ticket is non-refundable.
That's the funniest one.
And you were like, really? Where the hell was it mentioned earlier? And how does a consumer go about doing such things? Because I know a lot of people around me who've lost a lot of money because of this.
Karan, the best part is when you're, and this is something in India, misleading advertisements, print media, etc. People humiliate people here, exploit people here on basis of this, that I did mention it, but in a corner where you cannot see it. And then it's sadly the lawyer community which has helped them draft it in a way that, they have the upper hand of taking advantage of common man. But again, there are certain degrees and patterns as to how things have to be displayed. It has to be visible in a manner where you should be able to see it, comprehend it. If it's not, again, consumer law works on two concepts: service and what you've paid for. And that goes for the airlines industry as well. When you pay for that ticket, you're accorded to a certain degree of service that needs to be provided to you. All right. In case there is a dispute in that service, and now I'll come to the threat assessment level, etc., of whether you are a danger to the flying community or to your fellow passengers. The threat escalation matrix exists around the world on all airports with all airline authorities and staff, wherein the threat is assessed on the basis of behavior, on conduct, on the reason for the conduct, and how come it is going to cause a disruption and what level of it. Absolutely. In case it's a dispute between two employees and one of the passengers owing to some reason which is not vilifiable, then again the consumer court says, please file for a consumer. So the three levels are the district level, the national level, and of course the district, the state, and the national level, depending on the size of your deficiency in service, where you can take them. Again, civil law, again, you're in a temporary contractual agreement to where you've paid for this part of journey between point A and point B. And they're supposed to provide you with that service which you've agreed on, of course, subject to term and conditions. But those term and conditions nowhere say that we will decide how your behavior is appropriate or not. Absolutely. It is arbitrarily done. Of course, there's a threat escalation matrix, as I'm telling you. And that is the problem in India, that people are not aware of these laws. Not aware, as in they're not publicly available for anybody.
Yes. Which is why, I mean, my most important worry rather in life is, how do people get enlightened, educated about the system that we have, about the laws that we have?
And, sadly, I tell people that legal education is not part of our system at all. And as growing up, when I hear people talk about Fifth Amendment, etc., overseas, and they are more aware of American Constitution than their own rights. Yeah. If I ask majority of the population, what is the Fifth Amendment? Indians will have the most amount of hands. I know the Fifth Amendment. I know the Third Amendment. It's all stupidity. Your own laws. I understand there is a backlog from the Indian administration also, because our society our population is huge, and we are trying to still meet out. But it is also the interest and duty of a citizen to know his basic rights, which while we are growing up is not inculcated in us. We take everything for granted that, until unless something happens, I'm supposed to know. So what can one do? Refer to the Consumer Disputes website. There's a downloadable PDF on it. The PDF talks about in detail as to what are the consumer rights, what you can apply for. Sit with the lawyer maybe. have a discussion. There's a consumer dispute forum online which is available for discussion, where you can put in your query and they can reply back and tell you whether you're eligible for this or not.
Okay. Wow.
Look forward to it. Then as far as your civil suits are concerned, I understand it's a complex area. You'll definitely need to look at a lawyer helping you out. As far as your reading is concerned, I would suggest everybody read Bar and Bench magazine or the Lawyered page. It's going to talk a lot about what's happening around in the country. You don't need to know the law. You need to understand the basic principles of where it stems from, right? As far as the consumer law goes, again, there's a consumer helpline available on the website, which you can call, get in touch with the people. And the consumer website also involves all the areas where consumer disputes stem from and are covered, which includes the airline industry to an extent. And it involves your food, entertainment, like your movie halls, where they charge you separately for the popcorns they sell you at exorbitant prices, and where you say, well, what am I paying for? Is it legal to do so because I'm already paying for the ticket, which the ticket involves? Though there is a High Court and a Supreme Court ruling to that effect, but none of the cinema halls follow that, including in Mumbai, where they've said that you can bring your food. Yeah, you can bring your food in. And
Maharashtra, they approved that. I remember. Yes, they said you can bring some food in. Yes.
You can bring your food in, and they cannot stop you from saying that you don't have. Also, on the pricing of the food that you get inside the theater. Now, MRP is regulated. So are the taxes. So is everything else which is regulated. They cannot charge you 800 rupees for a bag of popcorn, which is large in size, but they're doing it. But that's because nobody's unanimously deciding to file for a consumer.
Yes.
The day you choose to do that.
You should actually encourage people. I mean, it might just cause a lot of because a lot of consumers.
No, it's okay. No, and I agree with you, Karan. No, and maybe once you're here, we'll do a segment where we'll ask people to give their signatures, and we'll file a consumer application stating that, let's do this. Why not? What's the harm? It's my right to question.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we can file an RTI asking for details. People have already done that. Why not? I'm always telling people, let's do this. And the third and the most important aspect is, I'll give you an example of how consumer law comes into picture. Go to a tapri wala, right? Now, a small tapri wala holds those 10 rupees ka Coke bottles. Let's say he sold you a bottle of Coke, all right, for 10 rupees. Now, I don't believe you get an invoice or any paper for that. You just pay 10 rupees. It's cash business. And you drink that bottle of Coke. And when you're halfway down, you realize there's crap in this, or it's not clean. There's some problem with it. And now you want to file something against him.
You can't do anything.
What do you do? You can't do nothing, because you've not actually asked him to give you a small piece ticket.
Yes.
But the consumer court says, any case, the handling over of that particular piece of note to these guys, that means you have availed of service. So the bottle number, it is traceable. The crate number is traceable. Everything is traceable, provided you are willing to get through this headache of sitting and recording all of this. Either it's maybe over a phone, maybe the conversation is over of some medium. You need to be very careful when you're doing these cash transactions, especially 10 rupees, 5 rupees, 7 rupees, because in the Indian consumer laws, the court is accepting such applications as well, where you cannot even provide a small piece of paper suggesting that, this has been done. But how the court traces it is, they order if you're really serious, they really go after, they'll order an inquiry, the crate number, the dispatch box number, the supplier, which is Pepsi, the wholesaler, etc. Everybody gets involved into it until the tapri wala. The only thing is, you have to wait for the due process, pursue it diligently, and make yourself have the small proofs that you need to showcase that this has happened with us or them. And no tapri in India. I know some of them function illegally, but all of them somehow have a record which is under the Mini Shop Establishments Act across. So you can always reach out to your local wards and get details of any tapri which is registered by saying that, please provide me of that on that circle, whether it's legal or illegal. The municipal corporation has details because they cannot function without registration. So any hawkers that are illegal and are doing it, you any case can file a lot of matters. I know it's a headache to go through all of this, but this is how you know.
Yes.
This is how you know stuff.
You're right.
And you choose not to avail certain services. I know it's a headache. It sounds tedious to start from scratch.
Or have a lawyer friend.
That's the idea. I don't know how much I can tender in terms of knowledge, but this is the chain process, and that is why when we say the consumerism in US is capitalism is good, it is good because there is accountability. If you sell you a bad bottle of Coke, he's accountable to pay you for those damages. Like you would be, I'm sure you would know about home appliances, right? India is number one right now in home appliances, and so are the consumer laws around it. So these guys are scared in supplying you default or faulty items because they know that they come hard. But the latest Consumer Act of 2020, which has come through, or 2019, I believe, it has expanded the whole horizon. You can read upon it. It's the latest act with the PDF. It is covering 100 more areas. It's talking more about what all consumers can do, ease of doing stuff. Everything is gone online. Helpline numbers, emails, they do reply to you on everything. It's not that you filed a complaint and nothing comes back to you.
As consumers put in the effort.
I mean, nobody's going to walk up to you and tell you that I will help you. Please come to us. The law will only help you if you help your own self in educating. And the only way to educate yourself is either listen to Karan or to me or know your Kanoon, or read up, read up content online and reach out to people who can influence you in the right way with this content. I understand there's a bridging of gap, but trust me, with the kind of population we have, the government is trying its best. There are websites.
Yes, and corporates, please, all the corporates out there, be nice to your consumers. Be kind.
Be nice to your consumers. Otherwise, one day I will start filing $1 million suits with Karan, and you'll all have a trouble.
Watch out, everyone.
Watch out. So, Karan, thank you so much. Man. I hope you had a great experience.
Very enlightening.
It's wonderful having you.
45 minutes of time that I've had.
And we look forward to having you more, where we do special segments where we'll put Karan on the other side and I'll be on the side as a guest. And then let's see how that goes for us, Karan. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Looking forward to it, man. You have a good night.
Thank you for listening to Know Your Kanoon. Catch Know Your Kanoon on the IVM website or the app or anywhere you get your podcast from.
Eventually, you'll see the end of your childhood,
get accustomed to womanhood,
enjoy the experience of sisterhood,
might get to wifehood,
or not, choose motherhood,
or not. You'll learn to define your personhood,
earn a livelihood,
change the neighborhood,
and get rid of the falsehood that life post-academia is easy.
So join me, Ritasha,
and me, Ayushi,
on a journey from station starting point
to station, what now?
Next station, Pudin station, and hopefully Agla station, adulthood.
Fresh episodes out every Thursday.
Come learn and experience the ABCDs of being queer with me, Shunetro.
And me, Farhad.
On our show, Gay BCD.
The two of us take you through our stories and experiences of being gay men in the city of Mumbai and have candid
and sometimes downright scandalous
conversations about sexuality, gay culture, and everything in between.
Catch new episodes of Gay BCD every Tuesday on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get all your podcasts from.